Hello, hello, Naked Parent Nation, and welcome to the Naked Parent Podcast. My name's Chad Ratliff, and I'm your host. And on today's show, you're not going to want to miss it because we are talking about the parent's role in ADHD. Do the parents have a role? Well, you'll want to listen to hear more about it. But before I introduce the show and our guest with you today, I want to throw a preamble for our community out there, and we can work on it together, but something that really identifies us, where we are and where we're going. So check it out and let me know what you think. Naked Parent Nation is a worldwide community of parents raising children with all kinds of needs. We come together to share our naked truth, support our fellow parents, and inspire the inner growth that each of us needs to build the life and family of our dreams. For the parents that are struggling, we will love you until you can love yourself. For your children, we pray and send power from our collective group. As we come to understand our divine nature, we realize that there's no need to feel sorry for ourselves, be angry, or feel lack. We come to understand that our feelings of limitation and separation are only of our minds. Through self-realization, we expand our consciousness so that the challenges that perplex us today dissipate one by one until we're able to see and experience gratitude for every inch of our lives. We will lift you up until you're in love with your life exactly as it is, while realizing you have the power to create any kind of life you want for yourself and your family. We do this by living in the naked present moment, one day at a time. Esther and Jerry Hicks call it the science of deliberation. We call it the answer to all of our prayers. And on the show today, we have Michaela Davies. She's 29 years old. She's working on her master's degree in psychology and was diagnosed as a combined type ADHD just last year. Both of her kids have ADHD and one has autism as well. Her goal in life is to encourage parents to look at themselves in the treatment and management of their neurological disorders. And she wants to spread the message that ADHD is heritable and your child probably isn't alone within their family. So, Michaela, welcome to the show. We're so happy to have you.
Hi.
Where are you calling in from?
So Coventry, United Kingdom, so a little way away from you.
Evening time.
Yeah, so it's 6:30 here in the
Awesome.
evening. Yeah,
Tell
so
us, tell us about your two and the ages.
so I've got two boys. My eldest is 9. He has autism, ADHD, and oppositional defiant disorder, which basically means allergic to no. Uh, it is. It's a rejection of authority. We don't like the word no.
Yes.
My youngest has ADHD, and all three of us are combined type, which means that we're both hyperactive and quite impulsive, as well as inattentive. So we're both ends of the kind of scale, and we fluctuate between both.
And you just found out last year.
Yeah, yeah, it's quite an interesting thing. I mean, I suspected for a couple of years, and hearing more about my children's symptoms, I'm going, well, I do that, and I do that, I do that, I do that, but in just completely different ways. And then the older they got, the more I empathized with them and realized I was the same. Um, so
Which
yeah, it
sounds
kind of yeah, so it began my journey, and I was like, no, I want to know, and I did, and got the treatment, and I mean, my life's great now. I know
really.
it sounds silly, but I'm not overwhelmed anymore. No anxiety, nothing. So I'm really, yeah, it works.
I can't wait to hear more. I'm super excited about that. Can you tell us and our listeners when you thought your child, your 9-year-old, was on a path that was different than you were planning?
Um, I think it was about 2,
So
when sort of
early.
yeah, so when language didn't come when we thought it would. So there wasn't sort of normal developmental milestones being hit at the right points. We were always a little behind, except for in motor skills. So he was very, very quick to walk, and he walked for a day and then ran. Um,
Wow.
he ran and ran and ran, and he was only about 10 months old. So his first Christmas, he was running. Um,
Wow.
and this was it. That's when it started, and it didn't stop. Um, Baby groups, I was the parent chasing her child around. Um, but the only time he'd really participate in sort of talking was when it was a singing activity. So he would sing, but he wouldn't talk. So I was oi for a few years before we got to like mum. It's things like that. Noticing that he cannot sit still. Like it did not happen. He was eating, like trying to stand up, walk around the room. So it was really, really quite early on. And because my sister has children roughly the same age, it's very easy to make comparisons. And I mean, they are really similar ages. So when I'm going, oh, well, mine's not doing that.
Yeah.
Oh no, it'll come though. And they're either a walker or a talker. And you start sort of doing that thing where you're going, it'll be fine, it'll be fine. And then it gets to a point where you're like, okay, maybe we're not fine. Maybe we've got something going on. And then he started going to sort of a childminder so that I could go to college. And then she would hand him back at the end of the day and go, I'm sorry. He's done nothing but run all day.
Yeah.
So he was the kid that was always in the garden, always running, always busy, never sitting still. And then with the autism traits, there was a lot of sensory issues, struggling to regulate. So the older he got, the more obvious it sort of became that he needed some extra supports. It was one of those where it was the older he got and the more we were around other people his age, the more we realized there were differences, which, it's hard as a parent to hear.
Yeah. When did the doctors ever come in and make a diagnosis, or is this something that you've just journeyed through?
With the UK system, it's a really quite long process. So I know people who could be looking 8 years to try and get a diagnosis. So we have the National Health Service here. So nobody pays for medical besides prescriptions, which is not the same kind of cost that you pay over there. So everyone's in the queue.
So you don't need a diagnosis. You were just able to start getting support when you saw support needed?
Yeah. So nurseries will jump in. Early on in the school, they have things called Senkos, who will look at the needs of a child and get them the resources within the school environment or help find placements for schools that would be suitable. So we do have the supports in place before we reach diagnosis. But trying to get the validation of a diagnosis takes ages. So you won't get any medication. So there's no melatonin until you've got that diagnosis. So melatonin here is a prescription.
Wow.
So you guys can get it as gummies over the counter there and things. So we can't get that. It has to be a prescription, and you have to have a diagnosis before you get a prescription.
Wow.
So you've got children who've got ADHD, who've got no access to any kind of sort of medication to help. You've got children with autism without medication to help because they haven't got the diagnosis yet.
So what about sleep? How did
So sleep was a hard one, but it was all routine. It was making sure there was no electronics on, but having something like an audio book so they weren't bored. Because if they're bored at bedtime, they're getting out of bed.
Yeah.
So it's having something going on, but not enough to actually stimulate and everything. So Riley was eventually diagnosed at age 6, and we started the process at age 2.
Wow.
And that was just for the autism. And then they said, well, actually, it'll take a further year on the waiting list to get the ADHD, even though it's the same person assessing it.
Wow.
So at that,
wow.
Yeah, so at that point, we actually went and paid for private medical care, which the turnaround was 6 weeks.
Wow.
6 weeks. And so all of his medication is private. Everything's done that way. So we got the help with the ADHD almost immediately. But they also don't look at it until they're 6. So
well, I'm happy for you that you were able to afford that route, and rough for those who aren't.
It's really rough for those waiting in the system, and it's rough for the kids because if they're not really obvious and really obviously presenting, they're going completely missed.
And your second child is how old?
He is 7. and he has ADHD as well. He doesn't have the same difficulties as his brother does. He does have more control and he is able to concentrate better, but that's only at this point. I can't tell you how it's going to go.
How do they get along or not get along? Are they interested in each other, or do
so they actually they actually play together. They will interact with each other, but it can become explosive. So it's I'm quite often a referee, not a mum. I'm getting in the middle, stopping the fights. But like right now, they're playing quite happily on the PlayStation together. I'm pretty sure you can't hear any background noise.
Wow, it sounds.
Yeah, I mean, we're pretty chilling in the evenings. They've got their routine. I mean, it's gonna kick off in about an hour when it's coming up for bedtime. But yeah, right now they're pretty chill. It's only if one of them kills the other one on PlayStation right now that we're going to hear some shouting.
Competitive.
Yeah, really competitive. Stupidly competitive in this house. Like, we can't play board games.
Yeah. We're competitive too. I don't know why too sometimes. And the things that we're competitive about is hilarious.
Yeah.
What does a difficult day look like in your household when everything's kind of, all of the challenges are flying off the handle?
Okay. So a difficult day is where one of them wakes up and decides it's going to be an annoying day. And I say this with total love. They wake up and they've got a face on them. And they'll come out and they'll be grinning. I'm like, what's up? And it's just, I don't know, Mum. I'm thinking, oh God, what's coming? What is coming next? But it'll be a day of, he'll make the repetitive noises that set off my sensory. And then, so I'll sort of get quite snappy and I don't mean to be. And I'm always apologetic afterwards. And I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to. I got overwhelmed. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And then it's sort of, and then he'll go towards his brother. And then he'll make the sensory noises that trigger him. And then it'll poke the bear. So my kids make quite screechy noises and they'll go, and he'll do it repetitively. It's about the only time he'll give me eye contact because he wants to see my reaction. And he will glare straight on in my face. It's the only time I get eye contact is when they're doing something to get a reaction. Any other time there isn't eye contact, but there is when they're about to do something.
Is it just for the reaction or?
Yeah, it's dopamine seeking with ADHD. Okay. So we lack dopamine. So anything that excites us, we're going to chase. And that's why we're impulsive. So we chase and chase and chase the dopamine. Now, when you're winding someone up, it feels quite funny, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You know, when you're having a little prank and you're just having a bit of a joke around.
Yeah.
Except when it feels good and you've got ADHD, you'll keep doing it.
I see.
And doing it and doing it and doing it until you get a big reaction. And then either they'll find it hilarious or go, oh, I went too far. So it's kind of, they'll poke the bear and then go, oh, I probably shouldn't have done that. And I've lost my PlayStation for the day. And it's like, do you see what I mean? But they're dopamine seeking. So at those points, it's like, should we get a snack? Should we try and like do some star jumps? Should we play a fun game? Like, let's move away from this situation so no one ends up exploding. But yeah, it's dopamine seeking. They chase it.
I see. So my son, he does very loud, high-pitched sounds as a stemming for his autism, which fires up my anxiety. He's not trying to, it's a little different though, because he's not trying to get under my skin. It just gets under my skin.
Yeah, see, mine have verbal stims that they do without meaning to. They don't even know that they're doing it. They've got no awareness. And so it'd be like, and it's constant, it's the popping noise. And they don't even have a clue they're doing it. No idea. So they don't even realize they're doing it because it's happening as a stim. It'd be no different than me trying to control my hands while I'm talking. It doesn't happen. But yeah, so I've started being able to tell the difference between their stims, and a lot of it's down to eye contact. My kids, they've got no reason to look at me if they're going, but if they're doing the noises that they know that trigger my sensory, they will look me straight in the eye. they'll do this with their teachers as well. So it's not just something they do with me, but if they're deliberately trying to sort of dopamine seek, I call it,
Yeah.
it's that dopamine seeking. It's, I'm going to go and wind this person up. I'm going to go and tease them a little. I'm going to have a bit of a laugh and a joke. And it just doesn't always go the way that they think it's going to go.
Yes.
But yeah, a lot of it's down to whether they're looking at you or not. Because if they're looking at you dead in the face, they're waiting for a reaction.
I
They want
see.
to see if you're laughing. They want to know the reaction. They want to see it. So yeah.
How much do they know about their ADHD?
Everything. Yeah. So I'm really open and honest with them about it. I'm honest with them about struggles they may have and how we as a team are going to get around that.
And how does that play out for them now? Does it bother them?
No, they think they've got super cool, superpower brains. I've shown them sort of people like Elon Musk and Emma Watson, so who played Hermione Granger, Channing Tatum, like Einstein. So I'm showing them all these amazing brains and some of the sort of successful people who have the condition, because I want them to identify with the success with it, not the sort of negativity with it.
I mean,
I've got ADHD and I'm a great problem solver. I'll see a solution that other people don't see. And I'm trying to encourage them to do that, but just sort of communicate it in a way that will be heard, not just, this is my idea. And it's that kind of that's the sort of issues we have, is communicating it in a way that will be heard or listened to or taken on board. So yeah, it's just trying to teach them about it, how to manage their anxiety. So if I have a meltdown, I will not hide it from my children. I don't. I show them how I get through it, and they've mimicked some of what I do. So if they can see that there's no shame in their meltdowns, then they actually become less, because they don't have an anxiety over having them.
Right.
So it's the more knowledge I can give them, the more power they've got. I mean, it has backfired in certain places. So my eldest he's got quite high IQ. He's very intelligent. He just can't regulate. That's not something he's capable of at this point. He's getting a lot better, and there's massive improvements. But he said to the teachers, well, I don't really need to be in school because mum did an IQ test and I'm really clever.
Yeah.
Or he convinced the educational psychologist that to encourage his working in the classroom, he needed a trampoline. Wow. She considered giving him one until me and the teacher left.
He's smart. Wow.
This is the problem. So he has he's got enough sort of knowledge there that he also uses it in his benefit sometimes. And I'll sit there and be like, you did not need to do that. And he'll burst out laughing because he fully knows that he's got his workaround around an adult. So he's really chuffed with himself. And we're sat there like, can't believe it.
I love the keeping it real thing, though. I mean, I feel like maybe it's the technology, but like, when I was growing up, there was like this separation between adult and child. And it was almost like the adult was like perfect and the child, and
oh, I'm not perfect at all.
Nonsense. It was all it's like nonsense. How does it play out with the peers, peer to peer?
Peer-to-peer relationships are, well, my youngest thrives. He's a social butterfly. He's the Jack the lad in the classroom. He's the class clown, goofing off. That's my youngest. So he doesn't have any difficulties. He can sometimes be a little bit too much for people, or quite dominating in conversations, but he's actually a sweetheart. And he's the one that'll go and punch someone at school because they're picking on someone, or he's the social justice warrior kind of thing. Yeah, like he's quite happy to go and get stuck in, go and get involved, and he won't sort of tolerate any of that. My eldest is a bit more standoffish. So he used to do a lot of parallel play rather than actually participating in games. He wouldn't join other children in the lunch hall because of the sensory. Like, there's people walking around him, there's lots of people, there's smells, there's there's lots of different tastes. It's the sound, it's everything.
Yeah.
And it was one of his friend's birthdays. And he decided he was going in the hall to eat dinner. And he decided he was going to do it. And now he's doing it every day.
Oh, wow.
And this was only just earlier this year. And now he started going out onto the playground at lunchtime and break time. And he no longer has an anxiety. So he built it up in his head that he was going to do something that was either going to hurt somebody because he couldn't regulate, or he was going to upset somebody. So he just kind of avoided, and that was his thing, is I'm going to avoid this because I don't want to get in trouble, or I don't want to hurt somebody. And he's now got a bit more faith in himself. And I'm like, look, you can do it. You can control yourself. You know you can. And when you can't, we've got things there. Like, you've got the support, you've got your teachers, you've got your one-to-one, you've got what you need. And he's doing it. And if he falls, I'll catch him. But I'm gonna do it. Sitting there going, oh, he's got ADHD, he's got autism, he can't. That's gonna internalize.
Yeah, sure.
And the thing is, if I think that and he hears me say that, how are they going to crack on?
Sure.
How are they going to do it? Because if their biggest cheerleader can't be the one going, you can, we'll find a way how. Like, I never do the whole, you can't do it because of your disability. And this may come across ableist. I do the whole, okay, is this something you really want to do? Yeah. Right, let's find a way to do it. It's not you'll do it the way everyone else does.
Right.
But we're going to find a route. If you are adamant you want to do something, we'll do it. But we'll find a workaround so that it works for you. So that's kind of how we do things. It's that's it.
Do they know any other kids with ADHD, or has there been any name calling or anything? Do the other kids know that they have ADHD?
Yeah. There's a big openness. We haven't really had any bullying issues, or none that my son is aware of. So he may not have, because of the inattention, he may not have heard it or noticed it. But he's never complained of anything like that.
That's great.
So that's what makes me happy. And he's noticed an issue with a friend of his, and he jumped in to try and help. The problem is he's going to get himself excluded if he tries to help, because he will take it a step further than other children will. But he jumped in to help his friend.
Yeah.
And it's like, he's got friends, and he cares enough about them that he's going to go and do that.
That's awesome. Cool. I love that.
So, and like, we go to social clubs. So we have a group where we meet at the library, and the children will get to go on tablets, and it's an autism friendly session. So we can be ourselves without worry for what's around. And we also meet just the mums while the children are at school, and have coffee together and talk about our problems. And we talk about solutions that we found. It's have the support, reach out for everything. Grab it, because if you don't use it, that's fine, but take everything that's there, use the resources. I mean, my children are in mainstream education, so they're not in SEND schools, so they're showing people and all the other students how cool it is to have ADHD and have autism. So we're showing the good and the bad, the ugly, the crazy, the everything, like the beautiful chaos of it all. But we don't hide any of it. We're very active in our communities. I don't not take them out. I don't not take them to kids' things. Whereas I've got friends who are very worried about judgment and very worried about social stigmas and the looks. Like, they used to get me. They really did used to get me. Or it's when people say, come and give your child some old-fashioned discipline. And it's like, like, you can't beat ADHD out of a child.
I know.
Like, I suppose if you beat them enough, they would just behave and out of fear. But I mean, it's not going to get rid of it.
Yeah,
it's not going to do that. And you're not teaching your kid how to manage their condition.
Right.
You can't.
Well, It sounds like you're doing an awesome job. Can you tell us a little bit about your education path and uh, were you on this? Yeah, tell us a little bit about what you're studying.
So I started studying social sciences when my eldest was about 2.5. So my youngest is only 7 months old. And I'm not someone who can sit around for too long. I'm far too bored, so I needed to do something. And I went and found social sciences. I was like, this is pretty cool. I'm learning about people. I'm learning about society. I'm learning about criminals. And then I actually did well because I enjoyed it. So I went and tried to get into university, and nobody who knows me as a child would ever have thought I'd have got there.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Awesome.
my honestly, my science teacher's probably turning right now, like, how on earth did she get to do this? Um,
That's awesome.
no, I was the kid that was constantly sent out of class. I didn't do that well at school. I certainly didn't get grades to get into university.
What
You know, I was
changed?
So at like 16, so we do things called GCSEs here, which is like your GED. And I took 10 subjects and I got C's in 6 and I got 4 D's. So it's not overly impressive. So it's not enough to sort of get me through. But I tried college and I did this course and I did well, which was a shock to me and everyone. Then I went to uni and did criminology and psychology, which I loved. I loved, but I was still drawn to the psychology. So once I graduated, I took a year off, and it was the year of coronavirus. So I was homeschooling for a year, and I kept both children at home with me for the year. Um, so that was an interesting one, really interesting. But my son started catching up academically, because the thing is, parents can sort of encourage their children in a way that teachers can't. I'm the one that controls the PlayStation. That's it. That's it. I've got the control of the PlayStation.
Right.
Miss at school hasn't. So it's one of those. So he was more determined to get his work done quicker. He didn't need the movement breaks because he's at home in an environment that he was comfortable. So we had a lot of these kind of things. And then I went, right, the kids are back at school. What should I do? And just towards the last few weeks of sort of the kids being at home, I signed up for my master's degree, and decided to sort of pursue psychology and see if I could share what I've learned about my kids with, myself, because I was learning about me at this point.
Yeah.
So to see if I could share this with other people. So
Awesome. That's so
yeah,
cool. Yeah.
I'm still not sure what I want to be when I grow up, but I'm kind of just rolling with it and seeing what opportunities sort of come at me, and I'm going to take them.
I like that. Sounds like you're going for it. That's
Yeah,
what you do, right? Is just go for it.
pretty
Uh,
much.
what do you do? What's your secret to getting through the challenging times? How do you take care of yourself? How do you deal with the anxiety that comes from the challenges of being a
Um,
mom?
just reaching out for support, and it's if you're having a bad day, speak to the teachers. Like, if you've found it hard getting your kid into school, tell them, because they can work with them and maybe get to the bottom of what kind of happened, and or sort of what went wrong with the morning. But taking care of myself, a lot of that was down to looking at my diagnosis and looking at why I become so overwhelmed with certain things. Why do I have such an anxiety? Why am I constantly sort of down and depressed and worried? And that's where my sort of diagnosis came into it. So it's quite a difficult one, but it's also remembering to have fun. Just have fun with your kids, with yourself, with your partner, with your friends. Have fun. Don't let it be everything.
I like that. So was getting the knowledge of what you were dealing with enough, or did you have to implement, practice, um, have little code words, snap rubber bands on your wrist? Did you what
Um,
tell us
so
how things went from depression and anxiety to everything's going amazing?
so that was down to me looking at my diagnosis with ADHD and becoming medicated. So I take a drug called methylphenidate, which is similar to Ritalin.
Okay.
So it speeds up my brain functioning. So the things that I would be slow to process, I'm now not. It improves my concentration. It improves my organization. So I was constantly running around chasing what felt like I was chasing my own tail. I was taking 3 steps forward, 2 steps back all the time. And now I'm taking 1 step at a time because I can manage, I can organize myself.
So it's like a
Um,
miracle.
yeah, and I'm not saying that this is a miracle drug.
No,
It isn't.
the
But
right
the
medication for
function,
people, just from having conversations, from taking medication myself. I mean, the right medication for the right person at the right time in
life
my
changing.
situation has been a miracle.
Yeah. I
So
mean, I've gone from being anxious and worried and constantly not managing behaviors and sort of, losing my temper, and it's snapping and it's all that stuff. And the more I realized I had ADHD, the more I looked into strategies to sort of cope. And it was learning to be easy on myself, so I could actually forgive myself a bit more. So when I am losing my temper and I'm like, I know this is sensory, I know that it's a lot, go in the kitchen, try and calm myself down. So that was kind of, that's how I do it. Or I go and listen to music or sing out karaoke songs. I love singing. It's because I like the sound of my own voice a lot. But yeah, I love to sing. My neighbors probably don't like it very much, but it makes me happy. So it's all about when you're getting low, you need to put something back in. You need the happy, you need to put the good feelings back in. So you've got to do the little things that make you happy. I'm not saying go out on crazy nights out and having all the big extravagant things. Do the little things that make you happy.
yeah,
Just every day, little bits, and take the time for yourself, because
yeah,
you can't do anything for your kids if you're not well. And this is what I saw was just, okay, so I'm struggling. Let's not struggle anymore. If it's good enough for me to do it for my child, why isn't it good enough for me?
yeah.
Why don't I deserve that?
I agree.
I've watched the transformation in my child and gone, damn, I want a piece of that. I
Yes,
I want to feel like that.
yes,
And it got to a point where I was like, yeah, if I'm offered medication, I'm taking it. I'm taking it and I'm going to try it. And my grades went up. My anxiety went down because I wasn't rushing. I
yeah.
wasn't I wasn't constantly running around and panicking because I've left my keys somewhere, or I've lost another bank card, or do you know what I mean? Like just
Oh,
little things like that. Or
absolutely.
one
I
of my biggest things is walking out of a room and forgetting why I've walked out the room.
yeah,
So I
yeah.
repeat that on a thing 3 or 4 times and go, "Oh, I went to go and get my coffee." It's little things like that. That's what they call the ADHD tax. So where you've got to pay something on time, and then you end up with a late fee because you've borrowed a book from the library and not returned it on time. That's ADHD tax just there.
Hmm.
Or because you've got to buy specific clothing for to avoid sensory issues and they're more expensive. That's ADHD tax.
It's nice to
Um,
be in the know. It's nice to be in the
yeah,
know. You have, yeah, you have, Karina writes in and says that you're awesome, Michaela. You have a, do you know Karina?
Karina's my best friend. I
Yeah,
absolutely love her.
hi,
Hi,
Karina.
Blue.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. And, interviewing someone, I've interviewed enough people where you can see that where they don't take the time for themselves, or they're not looking to care for themselves, and they're just and they feel like they just are in the trenches all day every day, and I just feel my heart goes out to them because
Yeah,
they're not looking for a solution for them. They're trying to find the solution for their kids, and it's like you said, if you're not taking care of yourself, you can't,
no, it's like
you can't burn the candle at both ends, is kind of,
no, it's like they say with the oxygen masks when you go onto an aeroplane. Who do you have to put the mask on first? It's
exactly.
not your child. It's you. Look after you, and that reflects down to them. If you're tired, you're going to be grumpy.
Yeah,
You can't be your best self in managing them. If you're run down, you can't manage them. If you're unhealthy, it's harder. Make things easy on yourself. Look at yourself. Like looking at things like, okay, I'm massively disorganized. So I made it a routine of mine to constantly keep my diary, check my diary. So I've got my tick lists. Like, if you can't do a to-do list, do a done list.
Ah,
Do a done list. So
yeah,
sit there and go, okay, I've made breakfast today. And that's not something you put on a to-do list. You put your big things on there. But when you're having one of them days where you feel like absolute rubbish, make a
yeah,
done list. I
yeah,
walked the dog. I did the washing up. I've made dinner. Now those are things you wouldn't necessarily put on a to-do list, but
yeah.
when you're having a day where you can't, you just think you've done nothing. It's like all I've done is manage behavior, or I've accomplished nothing. So that's how I do it, is with a done list.
I like.
Um, little strategies of cleaning the house and getting through that. It's just strategies. It's finding things that work for you.
Yeah.
But take care of yourself.
Yeah, I learned one the other day. I just I forget exactly how they said it, but they said be grateful for today. Um, be grateful for today what you want to have tomorrow, and whatever you're not grateful for today, you won't have tomorrow. And so next thing you know, you're like, I'm grateful for this piece of paper. I'm grateful for the chair. I'm
Yeah,
grateful for the person who made the chair. I'm grateful for my kids. I'm grateful for their arms,
yeah,
and that puts so much perspective. And then next thing you know, I was in gratitude quite a bit. We have like just to get more of your opinion and insight and story. We do kind of like a lightning round where you give kind of like one sentence to one, one word to one sentence answers. Are you up for it?
yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's try it. What's the best advice you have received?
Don't take your shoes off.
Really?
Um, it
I like
stops you sitting. It stops you sitting down if you've got things to get done.
I like that. What do you have a top resource or recommendation to share with other parents?
Um, Facebook, find the groups, find your people. They're there. You won't like every opinion, but use what you want, get rid of what you don't.
What's the next thing on your list that you want to add for your individual well-being?
Ooh, that's a hard one. Completing my degree. Because that's for me. That's not for
Nice.
them. That's me.
What's one thing you think would improve your life if you did it or had it?
Mm, I don't know. My life's pretty good.
And you're welcome. Yeah, you can
Yeah,
pass too. That's a great place to be when you.
yeah,
That's one of the things that's one of the things that I really want to work towards in my life and push other parents towards is to love your life as it is. I tried to put that in the preamble a little bit. To love your life exactly as it is while driving towards the desires and the expansion and that sort of infinite abundant world that we have, but
yeah.
not needing any of it to be happy or
No, there are some
content
really
or
real low points. There are so many, but there are
yeah.
so many good ones too.
So that's good to hear. I'm glad. Do you have a favorite product that you use for yourself or any of your children that you just love and couldn't live without?
8D music. So 8D music it's a dopamine regulator for us. It's instant happy. It's instant happy hormones. It's a big serotonin boost.
What
And you
is
can
it?
find 8D music.
With the number
Uh,
eight?
yeah, and then
Okay.
D. So it's like 4D but 8D.
Oh, cool.
Um,
I have to check it
yeah,
out.
it's brilliant. And children who are neurotypical have a really particular reaction. And it's really, really quite cool to see the first time you see it.
Awesome. I'm gonna have to check that out. And you're really easy to talk to. I really enjoy our
Thank you.
conversation. But just of what we talked about and or just whatever's on your heart, what's something that you'd like to share with other parents that are out there listening since we're coming to the end of our time here?
Please, please, please look at yourselves. Um, ADHD is largely hereditary. And if you keep looking back at the people in your lives, you will see that there are symptoms there. It's just a lot of us have coping mechanisms. I'm 15 minutes early to everything because I'm terrified of being late because I was late as a child. Don't look at the symptomology. If your child has ADHD, think about you at your child's age. How different are you really?
I love
So,
that. Like I
yeah,
said before the show, I just got a couple brain scans for my kids, and that when they were going through the results and telling me like the readouts, I was checking some of my own boxes, and then I called to sign up for one for myself. So very in line with the topic for the show today. I'm super
yeah,
grateful that you took the time to be with us, and I hope we can connect down the road and kind of continue
absolutely.
this journey together, if that's cool.
Yeah, yeah, I'd love that. I'd love that. Keep me updated about your brain scans as well, because
I
totally
will. I
fascinated.
will. It's been great spending this time with you, and I wish you and your family the amazing life that it sounds like you're living.
Thank you, and you. I wish you all the
Okay.
best. Bye.
Bye.